to another episode of High Stakes with Steve Rozenberg. And this is where we talk about real life, real business, and real situations. You know, as entrepreneurs, sometimes, not always, but sometimes we tend to get busy, being caught up in day-to-day drama of what we do in our life and in our work. And we sometimes forget that the whole reason we're doing what we're doing is to actually make money and to actually do what's called turning a profit. And I have a guest today who's going to talk specifically on that, because not only does he know that, but he actually wrote a book specifically on this subject. So I'd like to welcome David. Thanks so much for being here today, man.
Oh, thanks for having me, Steven. It's an absolute pleasure to be on your podcast.
So let's just get into it for people so that they know David Richter. David, first of all, tell everyone just a quick synopsis of who you are, what you do, and why you're doing this.
So a quick synopsis. I am a real estate investor by background. I've been investing since 2012. And I did a few years ago, sold all the real estate investments I had to start another business called Simple CFO Solutions that helps with fractional CFOs or part-time CFOs to be on small business teams to be able to help them grow their finances and grow their bottom line, their net profit, by having someone who knows what the heck they're talking about and how to talk with the investor or business owner from that side. So that's what I'm doing now. And I'm a big fan of Profit First, which is a cash flow methodology and system, and wrote a book, Profit First for Real Estate Investing, to let people know that you don't have to live deal to deal and you don't have to be in that rat race as an entrepreneur. And like you said, Stephen, making sure that they actually turn a profit at, like on every deal and throughout the year as well too.
So let me ask you this. You said something, I think it's important. When you said you sold your real estate, was that by design to get to the next level? Or was it, hey, I'm just done with all this bullshit and I need to do something else? Like, what was the reason you did it?
So we moved across the country. That was one of the big reasons. And at that time, I had the portfolio to where I sold it and could move anywhere and live anywhere we wanted to. And we chose the East Coast at that time, be a little bit closer to family. We've since even moved since then as well. But that was one of the reasons too. So I had some cash and thought, okay, I want to start a business as well. And so I had kind of that cushion there to be able to go and start another venture as well too. So there was a lot of factors into the real estate investing and the pulling the plug and basically selling the investments I had.
So from a business perspective, why do people fail in your opinion? And whether this is investing or anything, I mean, we could label this business 101 mistakes.
Yeah.
But why do they fail from a profit standpoint from what you've learned?
I think because culture, especially where we are, like in America or whatnot, glorifies the hustle, the grind, reinvesting every dollar back into your business and like basically you being on fumes. We look at businesses like Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, like all these big tech companies, Tesla, that, had funding or has, the venture capital. And it's like, oh, like this is how they did. They were unprofitable for so long. And then years down the road, they're profitable and they're making billions of dollars. And it's like, we can't equate big business with small business. And we hear a lot of the philosophies of people who are in a totally different realm than where we are. So we're fed a lot of those false beliefs or beliefs that we shouldn't have until we've reached a certain level, or they're feeding us some, or it's accountants, bookkeepers who say, make sure you're managing your expenses, making sure, you're paying all your bills on time. And no one's telling the entrepreneur like, hey, put your oxygen mask on first, make sure that you are taken care of, that the business is healthy, that you're not just, that you're reinvesting at the sake of you losing your sanity and you losing your mind and reinvesting. So that way you don't have any profit at the end of the day. Not that I don't want you to reinvest. I just want you to do it in a smart manner, and I think that's why a lot of businesses fail, because they don't know how to manage the cash. They've never been taught, or they're being fed those false beliefs or wrong beliefs or bad habits or those types of things. And, then they just take it hook, line, and sinker and then run with it. And then they wonder why, okay, I've made a bunch of money. Right. Where is it all in my bank account? Why? And that's why they go out of business.
Well, and I think also you mentioned something earlier when you talk about maybe, a Snapchat or Google or one of these other companies.
Yeah.
that was probably part of their plan. Like that, the
Hmm.
plan was to go negative in the dip of the forecasting of revenue. People that go negative in their cash flow, it's because they don't know what they're doing. There's a difference.
Right.
It's like they're going, well, they didn't make money, but it's like, yeah, that was their plan. Your plan is just to lose money until you go out of business. Like which is not a plan. And then I think it's obviously there's, you can find a book on anything, right? And so
Yeah.
you've got one book, leaders eat last. You've got
Yep.
another book, profit first, right? So you've got these other, so you're going, okay, which one is the right one? Because everybody has a different opinion. But I think any successful business person that I've ever met, if you don't have a business plan and you don't have a successful model to model your business after, they would all say that you're a moron for even starting a business, which we all know. And I was one of these people in the beginning. Is I started a business because I thought I created a better widget, because I thought I could do something better. That has nothing to do with being a successful business.
No.
And business is all about numbers, right? I mean, what is
Yep.
your perception on trying to talk numbers with a business person and they tell you that that's not why they do it? I just love the process. I'm like, that could be the stupidest thing I've heard someone say. I love the process. I'm like, yeah, but you have to love the money. The profit is not a bad word. And I think a lot of people have this consumption like, well, if I'm making a profit, I'm not reinvesting it in the company. But as you clearly said, that's the wrong way to look at it.
Right. Profit and having that in your business, that's why we start the business. You want a profit. You know why you can hire people and bring them on board? Because you have a profit. You've created enough value in the market now to bring on people. So it's like, even though that becomes now your next investment or expense, you had that extra cash or that extra profitability to go out and hire the person. So it's like, you're going to need profit at every stage, especially as a small business owner, unless you are, of course, a venture capital company or whatnot. But most of us have our own, pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps, and we're the ones out there making sure that it happens. When it's at the beginning, it's usually us, maybe a business partner, maybe an admin type person, but a lot of the times it's like you said, oh, I've created a better widget and or whatever, and they start making the money. And they're like, okay, but I've heard I need other people, or I need systems, and I need these other, like things, those shiny objects to put in my business. Not saying that they're all bad, but that's where a lot of people think that I don't need the profit until maybe a few years down the road. And I know that creates bad habits from day one of, if you're not profitable today, then you won't build profitability in when you've 10x'd your business. I love what Keith Cunningham says in his books is, if you scale cancer, the tumor grows. Not the treatments. So that's where you have to make sure, if you're a business owner, that you're putting that profitability in place. And of course, if you're going to grow your business, the profitability percentage might go down. But like Stephen, like you said, that might be a plan. A part of your plan as you go along is like, sometimes it might be a little bit less, but we're still going to have that cushion. We're still going to have the profitability. And that's where, like, a lot of people in my world, because I a lot of the mastermind groups I'm a part of, they love to give, and they've got the giving, nature and that culture. And I love that. But if you're not giving when you're making $100 or $1,000 or $100,000, who says you're going to like make all this money and make $1 million, $1 billion, and then you're going to give a whole bunch of money then, like you're waiting for that someday to give. It's the same thing with your profit. You need to make sure you're building in profit now to your small business. So then when you become, smaller, bigger, and then you're growing and growing and growing, then you're building profit in at every step of the way. So I feel like that's one of the big mindsets that will help people get over that hump of, like, why do we need the profit? Or like, I just want to reinvest everything back into the business.
Yeah. And it's funny that they say that's why you tithe the first 10% or whatever percentage
Right.
of money, because the last 10% is never there. And
It's
so
gone.
it's very similar. And that was back in the farming days when you'd basically take the feed or the hay or whatever it was, the first, because the last was ruined by water or whatever. And
Yeah.
you never had it. And it's funny, you talk about like the forecast. When I had my company and we would go and expand into new cities, we would forecast the dip. And so if you just looked at the numbers, somebody would come in and say like, man, you guys are losing 50,000 a month in this city. And we're like, yeah, that's planned. And people would say like, why is that planned? We're like, the numbers. Now, if I just walked in off the street and said, you guys are going to be out of money, your runway is 9 months and you're done, But
Yeah.
when we look at it, we know the dip and then we're going to come back up. As long as it's forecasted and we knew what we were doing, we were able to forecast that dip. And it makes you sleep better at night going, okay, this is part of the plan. And that's what I think a lot of people need to understand. Losing money in your business, if it's part of the plan for expansion and you're hitting your numbers to hit the forecast growth, is okay. It's just when you don't have a plan is where it fails.
Yeah, exactly. It's having that plan. And that's where a lot of business owners, when they first start in, what you said was great. They think they have a better widget, or they like in the E-Myth, the pie. They're the pie maker. They make
Right.
the best pies ever. That's a whole different animal than being a great business owner
Yep.
and knowing how to be the skill of a CEO. And also a lot of people get into this and they don't even know the questions to ask on the financial side of how to be profitable or what to do with the money once it comes in, because they're good at making the pies or doing the deals in real estate or doing the widget, making the widget, selling the widget. But then what do you do with the money once it comes in? And that's usually a question the business owner has to go outside to ask about and say, what the heck do I do? Or they get into the situation where they're running out of cash and then it's like 911 emergency, like, what do I do now?
Yeah. And, monetization, look, at the end of the day, you have to learn how to monetize your company by sales and marketing to bring that inbound in. Well, let me ask you this. If you were a new business owner,
Yeah.
and I think I know the answer, but I'm going to have you answer it since you're the expert here. When should you plan for profitability? Like, when do you plan? Because some people say like, oh, I don't want to take any money out of the business. I want to leave it in for 6 months, 9 months. I want a cushion. What is your thought process on this when somebody's starting a business or buying real estate or whatever the case? When do they mentally plan that to actually happen?
So my stance is, and it might be unpopular and I don't care, is that from day one, that you have profitability built in. That's why I like the profit first system too. And that's where I'm going to say, okay, day one, like, what if I'm only making $100 on my rental? Or like whatever it might be, because you might have someone jump into real estate and they get in the passive cash flow game and they don't have 1,000 units and that can cover, all their expenses or whatnot. What I tell them is you're trying to get into the proper habits. That's what we're really going after. So can we get into the habits as soon as possible that are going to make you wealthy from day one? Basically, we're installing wealthy habits inside of your business from day one. So that's why, even if it's 1%, like at the beginning, you can't take, 50% or 70%, I get that. But can we build in profitability, even if it's a very small percentage, just to get into that habit as we grow the company, and making profit always a part of the plan, that it's either in an account that we're taking it out or whatever, so that we don't see it, but making sure that you have that built in, my opinion, is from day one.
Well, and it's funny. A quick story is when my business partner and I were growing our company, we had a friend that he was in the financial industry, and he split off from the company that he had and he started his own company, and he was taking out loans to pay himself. And I remember thinking to myself, like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, me and my business partner were like, that doesn't make sense. And he was like, it makes perfect sense because this is the plan. And I'm going to pay myself a salary because I deserve that. And this is not, he didn't say I deserve it. He just said that's part of the plan.
Yeah.
And before, my business partner and I, of course, we weren't making any money in our business at first, so we never took a draw. And I'm thinking to myself, that's got to be stupid. Well, it turns out it wasn't, because he was conditioning his brain that his business needs to make a profit because that's why it's there.
Right.
And again, he ended up scaling his company. He borrowed the money from the banks and other places. I was under the impression if I borrow from the bank, I got to put everything into the business. So he had a different perception. He said, no, he said, I put the allocated amount. The rest is a salary to me because I need to survive. And I want, it wasn't the destination. It was the journey.
Yeah.
And what I thought was interesting is he's like, look, this building of a business is a journey. You don't suffer for 7 years to punch out at the end, sell your company and think you're in this exclusive club. He's like, it doesn't work that way. Like, the journey is what you're on. And if you hate the journey, you're never going to build a business again, because you're going, I don't want to starve for another 7 years. So is that kind of along the lines of what you're thinking?
Man, that resonates a lot with me. Of we make decisions when we are stressed, when we're constantly thinking about the money, when we've got that hanging over our head. We make bad decisions. We make decisions out of fear rather than our purpose. So yeah, that's where if you do that and put yourself in that situation where you are, like you said, 7 years of just the grind for 7 years and you're not paying yourself. And it's like, that's burnout over and over and over again for 7 years. And it's like, how can we build that into where I don't feel that? Because you'll make better decisions. You'll make better hiring decisions. There's a whole thing that unlocks too. Like a lot of people preach abundance, but like want to pay their people as little as humanly possible, and it's like, this is where, if you put yourself in that box, it's hard to break out of it for yourself of saying, I really am abundant, but I'm not, I'm running on fumes, like I'm running on fumes. And that's where books like Robert Kiyosaki and the Rich Dad Poor Dad and other books like that, where he says, I used to pay myself first. And sometimes I'd have bill collectors calling me like, because I wanted to, what you said, condition myself to be in that habit even during that time. And I'm not condoning not paying your bills, but that's where he was at that point of, I need to make sure that this is a part of, that I bake this in, not just to my business, but to my psyche, to my brain, to the way that I think as a business owner, because I need to act right now like that, the business owner who has a 10 million, $100 million business, and like the actions that they'll take as well too, like from day one of being that wealthy business owner and getting yourself paid what you need to get paid, at least at the beginning.
Well, and it's funny talking about Kiyosaki. I remember one of the things I always remembered about his book is he always said he was not a best writing author. He was a best-selling author. And I'm sure people would give him a hard time. And he's like, I've never said I was great in English. I never said I'm good at selling and I'm the best-selling author. And I think that's part of the psyche that of it's, when I was being trained and learned and learning this model and mentored, one of my coaches, and I don't know if he made it up or he got it from someone else, but it was a term, and it was BE times do equals have. And so that was B times do equals have. Yeah. He said, a lot of people ask, like, how do I have the life that I have? What do I have to do to have your life? If I have to work 25 hours a day as an entrepreneur, I will do it. If I have to go 7 years without eating or drinking or making any money to have your life, I will have it. And he said, Steve, the problem, what they're missing is the first part of that equation. It's the B. You have to become someone different. And he said that the challenge is most people are $100,000 CEOs trying to run a $10 million company. And they're not $10 million CEOs. And he said, the problem is the company will only grow, law of the lid. It'll only grow to the size and scale of your ability. And he goes, the problem is they're not the CEOs they want to be, and they're not becoming that person. They're equating hard work with success, and it has nothing to do with hard work. And the person you have to become is not the person you're going to be at $100 million, $10 million company. He said, that's the problem.
Yeah, that's the huge problem. And that's why when you first start a business, like, you need to have some of those wealthy habits baked in. So you have them from the beginning to when you are, a million, 5, 10 million, like once you get to those points, because you want to build those in, and it helps your growth path too, of being able to say, who do I need to become and what do I need to do? So yeah, I'm 100% on board with that philosophy.
So let me ask you this. Let's put some practical terms here for people.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's say I'm just starting out, whether I own a piece of real estate and I'm a one-man show, or I'm a solopreneur and I want to go somewhere. What are some actionable steps that people can do to actually get them to that destination? Do you have any tips of things they can start practicing to become that person and to create that successful business model?
Yeah. So I'm going to take it from what I've written in Profit First for Real Estate Investing, the first 2 practical points. The first one is you need to know what you need. Like, get soul searching here. Like, what do you need just to cover your monthly expenses, to get you out of your rat race, like to get you out of, the cycle of just going deal to deal or living, month to month, paycheck to paycheck. What do you need that, as long as you're covered with that, you don't really have to worry? Like, what is that number for you? That's just to, cover those expenses. Then sitting down and saying, and soul searching and say, what do I really want? Do I want to cash out at 4 million, 40 million, 4 billion? Like, what do I want to create? because there's a lot of noise out there of growing, scaling, becoming the better business owner. And I'm just going to scale it as much as I can. It's like, what is that destination that you're going after? So it's really sitting down what we just talked about. This is kind of the B part. Who do I want to be? And really knowing first, who am I right now? Like what are my expenses right now? So I don't feel in the rat race. Then who do I want to become? What is that want number? So your need and want number. What do I need? And what do I really want? Because those are going to be guideposts along your way of setting up practical systems like a profit first system. So then the other practical step for anyone who wants to implement something right away to build healthy habits, profitable habits inside their business. One of the biggest mistakes that not just real estate investors who I work with a lot, but entrepreneurs in general, they have one big bank account where all their income goes in, all their expenses go out, and they are just tossing a cash salad all the time. They don't know what's going on. Where's the money? Like toss it over here, toss it over there, like put this fire out, the money will take care of it. But it doesn't give them any clarity. It doesn't say this is what the money's for, or what can I take out of here without bankrupting my business, or like what isn't here should I save for taxes so I don't have to worry about taxes at the end of the year. So it's like that one big bank account creates a lot of anxiety, and they don't even know like why they're having anxiety. Being able to examine that, and usually it's because we don't know or have control over the money. I've worked with so many business owners now that I know most people don't lose sleep at night just because they lose money. It's because they don't know where their money's going. So it's like having that one big bank account is really just, giving people a lack of clarity and confidence in their business. So profit first is a lot like the envelope system that you might have heard. Dave Ramsey's made that popular in, recent years. And you've got, that has been around for a long time, the cash envelope method. But literally for the business, it's opening up different bank accounts that have specific purposes in your business. And so I'm going to tell you 3 of the ones that we recommend that every business owner, this is if you're a real estate investor or any type of entrepreneur, can open up these 3 accounts, because I call the first 3 accounts the golden trio. Because I love big movie epic sagas like Harry Potter, Star Wars, all those big epic movies that have 3 main heroes like Luke, Han, Leia, always pushing the story forward for good, making sure that good wins in the end. Well, the business you're creating is your epic saga. It is your story. It is the thing that is going to last as a legacy, whether that's a horror story or a horror film, or if it's a great epic adventure. If it's, Princess Bride versus, Texas Chainsaw or, the Massacre. So it's like, what do we want to create? We want to create a business that has those 3 main heroes always pushing your story forward for good. So what are those 3, that golden trio of accounts? It's a profit account, it's an owner's compensation account, and it's an owner's tax account, to make sure that those are all for the benefit of the owner, meaning the profit account that I take out quarterly to either pay down debt that's just crippling me, or to just take out and spend on what I want to, because this is the reward of being a profitable business owner. You've got the owner's comp account, which is different, where that's for if you're working in the business as a cog in the wheel somewhere, you should be paid for what you're doing, and building that in. So the owner's comp is that where you get, paid weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, or whatnot, whether it's draws or W-2, it's that account to make sure that you're paid. That's where you would start filling up that bucket to make sure you have what you need on a consistent basis. That's when you're starting to exit your rat race. Then the third account, the owner's tax account, is if you're in an active type of, company where it's not a passive rental portfolio that you can just depreciate the heck out of, you're probably going to have to pay taxes to Uncle Sam. So you got to make sure you've got a tax account that's set up to pay your taxes. Instead of it coming tax time and you saying, how much do I have in my personal accounts to pay this off? Because now my business, because of the profits or whatever, I have this huge tax bill. What if you save that from your business throughout the year? So at the end of the tax year, you were able to say, hey, I've got that money set aside. I'm going to send it off to, the IRS, and then I don't have to worry about it again. So that's what those 3 golden trio accounts are. But the whole point of that is to build a profitable habit of saying, when I get money in, I'm separating out my money into those different buckets to make sure that I am profitable, I can pay myself, and I don't have to worry about the taxes. So there's some practical steps that people can do just to put in some bank accounts and make sure that they've got clarity around where their cash goes.
Nice. I like that. What's interesting, I don't know if you know this, but the brain always works in trilogies. So the fact that you have 3 things is good, because it basically links up what you're doing to what your brain is looking for. It's always looking for those three things in a row.
Yep.
Anyways, question. Somebody's starting a new business and you've got two options. You can bootstrap it, meaning you go with your own money and you figure it out and you know, bite, crawl, scratch, scream to get money, or you borrow money, whether you borrow it from an institution, a friend, your grandma, uncle, don't care, but there's two ways.
Yeah.
Which way are you a fan of?
The way I did it was with my own money. So, I mean, I think I'm more of a fan of that. And from day one, I built in the system, the practical system that we just put right there. And honestly, I haven't had to worry. Have there been months that are lower than others? Have there been months that are higher than others? Yes. But from bootstrapping with a system like this in place, I know what's coming down the pipeline, building reserves. It's giving me peace of mind, but I'm not against the other side of the fence too. If someone has an idea and they have a plan in place and they've got a system to manage the cash, that I don't think there's anything wrong on that side. But my personal preference, because of what I did, was to use the money that I had, collected in the, what I had done up until that point to start. But I'm also a real estate investor too. So, like when I did my first deal, I borrowed money, to do my first deal. So I'm also, so I can't say I'm not a fan of the other side.
Well, and I think what I explain to people is when you're borrowing money, again, from any source, that is a propellant to speed things up. For example,
yes.
Let's say you own a business. If, typically, from the way I've learned is if you have a company and you're marketing, well, everybody should market if you own a business, but typically it's going to be about 9% of revenue. And if you're in growth mode, it could be as high as 25% of revenue. So it just depends on how much money do you have in reserves to do this. And do you want, are you going to be anemic and do 1% of revenue and maybe not move the needle? And again, part of the forecast, when we were doing our expansion in cities, we had borrowed some money. And so, yes, it's kind of uncomfortable when you're borrowing people's money and you're losing and you're asking for more money, explaining and showing them. What was interesting though, is that the people that we had borrowed the money from in some of the institutions, we'd show them the numbers and they're like, yeah, you guys are right on. Like you guys are, yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, in my mind, I'm thinking like, holy shit, I can't believe they're giving us more money when we're showing them we're all red. But they're like, it's part of the plan. Like as long as you keep hitting your numbers, you guys are fine. Like we see the final dip, we see the forecast, we go from there. So I just going back to what you said, we built our company originally bootstrapping it. And then we started getting into some lending and we realized that lending can be great. It's a propellant, but it's a weapon and it can be used as a source, but it can also hurt you if you're not prepared to do what it requires you to do to fulfill that. So I like both. I think if you're bootstrapping, it's fine. It's just probably going to take longer and you may run out of funds at some point if you don't have the right plan. Same thing when you borrow money.
I think what we brought up before and what you specifically brought up is, are you ready to turbocharge it? Because if you're the $100,000 CEO and you want to go to 1 million or 10 million and, the funding's going to get you there faster, are you ready for that on your journey? Are you ready to level up to be that that level of CEO too? Because like you said, you probably bootstrapped and then saw like, I could do a whole lot more. And because now you're getting the CEO muscles working and you're like, now I'm pumping the iron and now I understand. And I'm like, you become that $1 million CEO and you're like at $250,000 in revenue. And you're like, I could really turbocharge this if I infuse it with cash and I know exactly what to do with it, where to spend it, who to bring on the team. I think that's the difference as well too, because some people just say, I have a great idea, like let's throw funding at it. And then it's like, oh shoot, I'm not ready for $1 million business yet because they haven't been on that journey. So I think that plays into it, like we talked about too, with a lot of people and, kind of their journeys as well.
It's funny. I was just talking to a real estate investor and we were talking about the differences of private money versus getting them conventionally. And I said, what's your take on private money? And she said, it makes me a little nervous to borrow money. And I said, why? She goes, well, if I lose their money, it could affect my reputation. And I sat there for a second. I thought, well, first of all, I don't think you're as popular as you think, jokingly, but serious. Like, if you have this great reputation, why would you borrow money? Are you doing something unethical and unmoral if you are borrowing money knowing that you are going to lose money for the bank. You're still borrowing it. You still have a financial response, a fiscal responsibility to pay them back their money. Just because it's not Uncle John doesn't demean the fact, it doesn't lower your responsibility to pay them back. I said, so you're okay borrowing money from a bank knowing that you may not pay them back, but you're not okay borrowing it from a person. I said, doesn't that say something about your business plan? Like you should be okay with whoever you talk to. You're actually giving Uncle John a better opportunity because he's getting a better return on the money because you're so secured and solid on the deal. I said, so maybe you really don't believe in the deal.
Right. That sounds like an insecurity for sure.
Exactly. And I said, again, I'm a big believer. You borrow money, that's great, but it's like giving a teenager the keys to a NASCAR. You got to be careful what you're doing. If you're not fiscally responsible and you're not financially educated to see this through to the end, you shouldn't borrow it from a bank. You shouldn't borrow it from a person. You shouldn't do anything until you take the pre-planning to figure out what does this look like when the business is done. And you said it very eloquently by having that, that vision of really understanding that clear vision of how this business looks. And I don't think a lot of entrepreneurs, unfortunately, whether it's real estate or business owners, do that first pre-work to get the right mindset and the right model to go after.
Yeah. I 100% agree. I think it's that journey like we've talked about, and it's all about that growth period. And where are you? Did you get different mentorship that would catapult you into a different level category than just someone who's just off the street that wants to start a business? It's like, where are you, where you are? And then also what you said about the funding. And yeah, I totally agree. If you're not confident in the deal or yourself, you're going to have those doubts of like, can I pay it back or whatnot? And it's like, well, I'm going to do whatever it takes to pay this back. Even if it goes south, here's my plans, to do it or whatnot. And, it's like having those plans if the worst case scenario were to play out. But then also with a system like Profit First, there's another bank account we like to open up in the real estate world, OPM, other people's money. Don't mingle that private money with your own money. Like, especially if it's specifically for a deal to rehab it or whatnot, like make sure that you are fiscally responsible, financially responsible with their money, and knowing like, this is the money I have to spend on the projects. This is the money over here and all those different accounts to actually run the business. That just gives you that clarity between the two. So it's like setting things like that up really help the business owner overcome the mental hurdle of, what am I going to do with the money? Like I'm going to take $100,000 in for this rehab or whatever. And now it's all mingled with my money. I hope I, don't overspend. And then they end up spending some of that on operations. It's like, get a system in place. It'll give them more confidence too, as a business owner, to take any type of money.
Yeah. 100%. All right. I got two last questions for you.
Do it.
First question. What do you want to be known for when this is all over? When they go, David was awesome, and this is what he did. What, in your mind, what is that?
At this point, I would say I want to fundamentally change how business owners view their finances. And I want to usher in the movement of fractional leadership on teams. There's a lot of small business owners who have access that they don't even know about to part-time or not full-time high level of CEOs, COOs, CFOs at a fraction of the cost and a fraction of the time, but still getting that knowledge of someone who's been where they are. So that's really what I want to usher in, is changing the financial conversations that business owners are having and giving them that confidence, and also ushering in fractional leadership to help business owners get a much better head start and along their journey as well, to help them level up to where they want to be.
Cool. I like it, man. I like it. All right. Final question for you.
Yeah.
If you could have a beer, wine, tequila, soda, whatever it is you do, if you could have that with anybody, real, fictionary, dead or alive, who would that be? And what would you want to talk to them about?
Okay. So growing up, I would have said my dad, and he's still in the top running for that. He's one of my best friends. He's also very business oriented as well too. So I've learned a lot from him. I would want to say my wife as well too, because I absolutely love her and she is my best friend. But as far as we'll go outside of family. Okay. So I am very close with my family, but besides them, probably Mr. Rogers, Fred Rogers from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. He's one of my role models for, especially having a daughter now, being kind, running a business, because all it is managing the emotions of the people that you are working with and making sure that we are on a team with the results and that everyone's moving in the same direction. And I would probably ask him a lot of questions of how he built the empire that he did, and impacted, like what were really the catalysts for, the change that he took place inside of children's lives, which grew up to be adults and now have children of their own. And probably that would be one of mine, because he's one of my biggest role models, just for being a kind human being as well too.
Wow. Very cool. I like that. I haven't heard him before. I've heard a lot of different people. I have not heard him. So that's good.
There you go. That's who I am.
David Richter, thank you so much. If you've got, tell everyone how to find you, where you are, your books that you've written, so that people can dig into who you are and what you're doing, if you don't mind.
The one-stop shop is simplecfosolutions.com. So simple CFO, like Chief Financial Officer, solutions.com, simplecfosolutions.com, where you can find, that's our services. We have a fractional CFO service, so part-time CFOs to help people on their teams. And that's what our service and product is. Then we also have the Profit First REI podcast. If you are a real estate investor and want to learn more about Profit First and that cash flow methodology as it relates to real estate investing specifically, got a Facebook group as well there, a link to that. Then also the book that I wrote, Profit First for Real Estate Investing, there's a link there, or you could just find it on Amazon. And as of this recording right now, it's available for audiobook as well too on Audible. So you can go there and get the audiobook, because I know most business owners and real estate investors, entrepreneurs like listening to things, especially if you're listening to a podcast like you are right now. You're probably an audiobook reader as well too. So we've got it there.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. David, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with me and to help educate our listeners, because I think what you have to say is very, very vital. It's very important. And if you're not doing Profit First now, hopefully after listening and watching David and reading his book and doing more, you will start. Because remember, we're doing this to make a profit, to give ourselves a better lifestyle, to buy better memories. And that's really what this is about, in my opinion. We want better memories, and the money gives you the ability to do that. And David's book will give you the blueprint to make that happen. So David, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Everybody watching, thanks for watching High Stakes with Steve Rozenberg. If you haven't, please make sure that you subscribe, watch, download, cherish, relish, do everything that you can. We will be back next week with more episodes from more people. Everyone, thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. High Stakes with Steve Rozenberg. Bye-bye.